Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Quick apology that we have to start a little bit behind schedule. I think we have to go on now. Others can join us later. I guess you can hear me. Can I get a response confirming that you can hear me? If you can.
You are loud and clear.
Thank you, brother man. So I'll just go straight to the meat of the matter, but then I'll just share a quick slide so that we can have an idea of what is it we're talking about in a much more greater detail. So the objective today is just to have a look at what is it that's happening in Ukraine right now. We're already aware that the world is being challenged with whatever is happening in Ukraine right now. And the beauty is that the entire world is becoming a smaller place. The more you think we are far from one another, the shock you get to be amazed, because we're very, very close. So we want to look at what exactly is Russia and Ukraine in terms of comparison. We try to compare them. Just politically, we look at social, economic, and a little bit of that. Then we go straight into the economic implication in terms of their power, the strength of each of this nation. When we look at the effects of this war, it's already a full-scale war right now, as we know. The implication on Europe, the implication on US, and the impact of this, everything that we see now when it comes to Nigeria, because we can feel it back home, and we should be able to do something about that if we can. So let's look at Russia, Ukraine. In terms of their population, Russia is about 146.02 million people, while Ukraine is just 43.3 million people. Russia is about 5 times the size of Ukraine. Their GDP is about $1.7 trillion for Russia, and Ukraine is $203 billion. That is a little bit smaller than what you see in Nigeria. Nigerian GDP is an average of 500 million. But then, in terms of exports, Russia exports 466 billion, and Ukraine exports $68 billion. In terms of import, they import 247 billion, and Ukraine imports 53 billion. Average monthly household income of individual people, the citizens of this country. Russia, we see 6,493.14 USD. And in Ukraine is 2,145.028 US per household income in the family. And their poverty rate is 3.7 in Russia and 3% in Ukraine. I'm sure you know our own poverty rate in Nigeria. Oil production capacity. Russia is the third largest oil producer in the world. So they have massive 10.73 million barrels per day. Russia. That is the main revenue earner for Russia. And Ukraine is 32,000 barrels per day. Nigeria can do currently Nigeria is doing about 1.3 million barrels per day. We are doing more than Ukraine, but we're doing about less than. Russia is about close to 10 times our size in terms of production per day. And they have the capacity to do that. So even though, let's leave aside, for gross national income per capita per head individual, that place is $27,000 for Russia, and Ukraine is $13,000 US. Beyond let's look at their global importance. Russia, Ukraine. Like I said earlier on, Russia is the third largest oil producer in the world. They are the 17%. They have the whole 17% of the global gas supply to the entire world. 17%. That's massive. We have massive gas in Nigeria, running into trillions in terms of capacity, but then we're not harnessing it. Wheat and sugar behemoths, they are very, very massive in wheat production. It's the reason why when we go further details into this presentation, you can see that the impact of the wheat is affecting Europe, and we expect the price of bread and some other things that we use wheat for in Nigeria will start going up. Major producers of nickel, copper, and aluminum. That's what, remember Ajaokuta. So they do a lot of copper, a lot of nickel, and aluminum, and steel from Russia. Ukraine, they are the breadbasket of Europe. They produce a lot of wheat also. Top supplier of rye and barley across Europe for the consumption of the Europeans. 9th biggest wheat producer in the world. They are trailing behind Russia. And the 5th largest global corn supply corn. As we speak today, most of these, their industries for biggest wheat producer and the corn is being hampered by this war, so they can't do anything. Supply about 50% of the global sun oil. Sun oil is used as a cooking edible for industrial use in major part of Europe and part of the world. We have sun oil in Nigeria also. So looking at the two countries global in terms of their importance, we can see them. And they started war. Let's look at the global economy before the war. What's happening around the world in terms of the economy before the war started 25 days ago? The war is 25 days today, 3 weeks. Let's see the economy. As of January, before the war, the global economic highlight shows that the global economy is in a frenzy. Nothing fantastic seems to be happening. Things are like yo-yo, jumping up and down. Battling rising inflation and high commodity prices. Everywhere in the world, the price of things are up in terms of commodities, in terms of inflation going up. The COVID-19 is becoming a common cold. We've seen that people are opening up their borders and their activities are becoming lighter, much more, getting better than what we used to have in 2020. Does lockdown restrain ease and business begin to reopen? China cut its benchmark policy rate to boost output growth because they've been having challenges in terms of their output. Though they're growing in terms of the economy, even in 2020, when there's lockdown and activity, they still grew marginally, but they are used to double-digit growth. But as it is, they begin to look for a way to ensure that they boost their output growth. Real GDP slowed to 4% in quarter 1 of 2021 from 4.9% in quarter 3 2021. It's based on IMF forecast in terms of exact things that happened 2021, 4th quarter and 3rd quarter. So there's been a drop from 4.9 to 4.0. In the United States, in Europe, and the UK, they are on new wave of new monetary policy. They are tightening new monetary policy to ensure that things are beginning to get better. Investors are also itching to divest their equities, and people go into crypto as a support. Those are the fiscal policy strategies being adopted and the position of fiscal policies in terms of different nations across the world and part of the world generally. So US to increase their interest rates, we expect that they're going to do that like 3 times this year already in terms of forecast. But let's look at the monetary policy tightening in terms of what the banks are doing to protect their country. United States, we see a jump in their interest rates at the beginning of the year by 7.75%, Bank of England by 2.25%. In South Africa, it's 3.75%, Ghana, 14.5%, and Zambia, 9.00% in terms of growth in interest rates. So as interest rates grow, we begin to tighten the economy, expecting activities to turn up for better for them to begin to move on until the war started. So in Russia and Ukraine, we can see a lot of activities happening now. We've seen the story in terms of war. Is the main story across all international media. It's only local media that carries it sparingly. But then European households are heavily reliant on Russian gas for their home heating. So the impact of the global economy will be determined by the length and the scope of this war. We've seen 3 weeks already. We've seen a lot of hardship on citizens across Europe, far away from where the war is happening between Russia and Ukraine. And the people within those cities they have over 5 million refugees now. people that run out of the country. People are in severe danger. So we shouldn't start war. The war could impact growth, inflation, could impact monetary policy, everything. The war is impacting. So what are the likely things that may happen if this war goes on? What are those things that are likely going to happen? I just want us to concentrate on this fairly the darker highlights. If you look at the Russian impact, that's the third on the scenario. One of the things that can happen is oil and gas keep flowing in market sectors, because oil and gas is the main thing that tied these nations together, mainly, and the financial transaction from their various banks. So falling rubles, and some of that's the currency of the Russian currency, and rising inflation force big rate hike. So it's going to increase the rate. We've seen the rate already high before the war. Now it's going to go higher. And sanctions will hit trade, and the economy will shrink. Those are one of the scenarios. The other one is to say, if you look to the energy supply disrupted, oil, if the energy oil is being disrupted, gets disrupted rather, and the gas price is up, then the risk of the market, what's likely going to happen is combined impact of weak ruble that's going to become weaker, because nobody trades in rubles like we trade in US dollar. That is why the United States is strong today, because of its widely use of dollar by the citizens of everywhere in the world. Market turmoil and disruption of the trade trigger deep recession. These are the things that can trigger disruptive trade activities and can lead to recession. Then we go to the extreme when we see deeper crisis as Russian budgets and energy sector takes an additional hit. If the European gas supply is halted, oil disrupted, significant global risk of can start a big shock in the economy, and it will result to a lot of crisis. So if we go further down the extreme right with the area that is more darker in red, very close to red, combined impact of energy shortage, negative spillover, and elevated uncertainty triggers recession. As we continue to tighten, as nations continue to tighten their strategies in terms of how to cut off Russia, the more you want to cut off Russia, the more the crisis gets worse. Because Russia has so much planned for this war over a very long period of time. Remember, it's been brewing since 2014, and it's now busted now. So they've been prepared for it very well. They may feel some part of the impact now, and it's biting hard. But I think some other people are feeling it harder than them. Unfortunately for Ukraine, already begging. So worst case that can happen is an energy spike combined with on accord inflation, expected to the federal account citing demand slow. Demand will be slower. Federal account continue to increase interest rates. The demand will become very sparing. Inflation will be up. So there's a lot of ample of things that can do. So this table, I just want to summarize in the next these three economic scenarios, just quicker and faster than the other one. What the first point I'm looking at here is to say, look, the central bankers will have to tweak their plan, not to scrap them. Why would they do that? Because the SWIFT they use as a medium of exchange is being tightened. So to prevent further upward spiral in commodity markets, keeping US and European economic recovery just on the track, then which means the central bank will have to continue to tweak their plan, because they can't continually, they try to block the Russian from using SWIFT. What Russia did was to go to China, and they were using the China exchange as against SWIFT to begin to trade, and their trade is still going on. But China wants to grow their economy. Remember, at the beginning of the year, they had issue, and they are trying to look for how to grow the output. Now there's war. They are not involved in the war. They are not a member of NATO, and they want to continue their business to grow their economy. And they don't have to use the USD to do their business exclusively. So, and they have their Union Pay, which is the equivalent of the SWIFT that they use in the West to exchange currency. Recently, Russia had to make some payments on top of the debts, about $700 million US, just last week Wednesday, to be sure that, yes, they didn't default, because default will mess up their image. So the second scenario is to prolong conflicts. So if there's a prolonged conflict, then the Western response to disruption to Russian oil gas export will deliver a bigger energy shock, because Russia can decide to to shut the gas supply to Europe. It's going to be worst ever. So the worst case outcome will be that the European gas supply is cut off. That's just what I say now. If that happens, because the gas supply to the world, remember Russia is 17% of the gas supply, and quite a lot of nations are dependent on Russia to supply them their gas to be okay. Then there'll be a lot of, it can trigger recession, and it's going to hit US badly. It's going to hit, especially the European countries, it's going to hit them very, very badly. So these are the likely scenarios that can happen and the economic implication of those scenarios. So if oil and gas keep flowing, what happens? So the oil price could raise, delay peak of the US inflation. So it is the oil price that can determine what is it. We know the oil price has been fluctuating. At the beginning of the war, it goes to about $120, $130 per barrel. It's now fluctuating between 110, 118, 120, whether it is Brent or WTI, the Western Texas Index. So, but then the CPI inflation is, from this graph, you can see the forecast with the graph, the extreme right of the graph, you can see how the forecast under various scenarios for oil prices, what will happen to oil prices under various scenarios that we have looked at. So first is to look at the inflation, if it's actual inflation, which is the dark one. This is the dark color that goes up before you get to the dotted lines. Then the green is the forecast with oil. If the oil is at $75 per barrel, but certainly it's now more than $75. Then forecast when oil is about $90 to $95 per barrel. That's what you're going to see in the blue. Well, now as it is, it's in 120 and above, about the range that it sits between, as at last trading on Friday, it's about $120 per barrel, which means year on year, the percentage increase of inflation will continue to go up. So the implication is that you're going to spend more money buying those things you need to buy, and both microeconomics and the macroeconomic on the macro level will be affected in terms of the more money that you're going to spend, more money to heat home for those that use gas for heating. Even our own local LPG is being affected. Ours is a local problem caused by logistics, but that is what you see. We know what the oil price is saying now. It's difficult for Nigeria to begin to bring the price of PMS, that's petrol, at the same thing at 165 that we're selling now. Those that are selling 162.5 before are already doing 165. And you know what the price of diesel is today, because we don't produce those things, we import them. So we send our product out the crude that we produce and bring out finished product because our refineries are not working. That's the dilemma that we have locally. So let's look at what Russia is going to face in terms of their ruble. That's the currency, it's sliding. You can see as at 24th of February, from top up there in terms of graph, you can see how the ruble is crashing. Immediately it attacks Ukraine. Went up a little bit and came down again as at 24th. So this is the movement of price of $1 US to Russian ruble begins to crash. When they started warning, when Putin started signaling, this is the way the price of ruble in the market, exchange rates begin to change as events happen. When US warned the world about the impending invasion, when Putin signaled diplomatic troops pulled back, the doubt about pulled back, up until Russia now finally attack. That's the movement. This shows the movement of the currency. If this is a scenario to show, look, who are those countries, or who are those nations that are exposed to Russia in terms of what happened or what is likely going to happen to them if there's a sanction? The Cyprus and Eastern European countries have the largest share of their economies exposed to Russia. So this scenario may push inflation to like 9% in March, which is already the way, and keep it close to 6% by year end. All these countries, especially those that are in the darker ones, the darker they are, the higher the likelihood that they're going to run into high inflation level, and they are exposed to Russian economy in terms of Look at Cyprus, it's the darkest there. The economy is so exposed to Russia because they rely on Russia to supply them so many things. Their wheat, their flour, their corn, their oil, their gas. These nations rely on. That is why they can't gang up as NATO to fight Russia. It's difficult. Let's look at share of gas imports coming from Russia. Nations that are getting share of gas. All those nations where you see pipeline going from the Blue Stream from Turkey and Nord Stream all the way to Germany. The Nord Stream pipeline actually to the first one and the second one. The second one is inconclusive, but the first one is concluded already, which carry gas from Russia to Germany. Countries like Turkey rely on it. Poland, Germany, Romania, Bulgaria, all these countries rely greatly on Russia to supply them. Part of UK, France, Spain, all these countries and nations rely on supply from, and this has been happening since a long time ago. Let's look at the United States now. The impact of this war in the United States. If you look at January 31st, 1982, you can see this is trying to compare inflation rate year on year and using consumer price again accelerated in terms of the blue lines and the pink line and the so-called brown line. So if you look at February 28th, 2022, you can see the inflation rate jumping from 6.4% to 7.9%. That's the myth. That's just what we want to show. In February, it jumped from 6.4 to 7.9. It's still single digits, but it's going up. And it's expected that it may go up further than this. And this has not happened in up to 40 years. This is because we can now see that we have seen videos, we have seen news and stories of how gasoline price is going up in the United States, how food price is going up. Logistic and truck drivers are finding it very easy, they're very difficult now to begin to buy diesel and move their products across the United States because the main movers of household goods are the truck owners. And it's becoming very difficult now for them to begin to access this thing easily. So the cost seems to be going up and it has picked on the inflation rate. The consumer price index also jumped 7.9% from the year earlier, following 7.5 annual growth in January. From 7.5 to 7.9. That's a huge jump if you look at the United States, so which is worrisome. And it's the impact of the war. Now look at inflation in Russia. Look at inflation in US, inflation in Russia. Why are we using US? Because US is the class prefect who speaks for almost every nation. Inflation shock in Russia. You can see the price for domestic cars has jumped by 17.1%. This is between 26 March to March 4th. February 26th to March 4th. Looking at the domestic, look at imported cars, look at the television, the price of all these items has been going up, and these are in percentage terms. So immediately after the ruble, the currency collapsed after the war, immediately the war started, then we begin to see inflation. Inflation is biting hard on an average Russian now, which means they have so much money, and they buy a few things with the money. This is an extreme case of what is likely going to happen. The application of maximum sanction from Europe and US by cutting off the SWIFT system. What they have done is to cut off the SWIFT system. I mentioned it earlier. That's using it to transact. They were thinking that it's going to mess up Russia too bad. Yes, we thought that it may lead to Russia cutting supply of gas, but they made preparation. That's the forecast of the West, thinking that this was going to happen to them, but it didn't happen. They cut their SWIFT off immediately after the war, a week after. And 3 weeks on, they're still running because they have to go to China and be using China system to make payments. They're not particularly, the US is not particularly happy. That is why you will have noticed that in the last few days, some delegates from the United States going to speak to people in having some meeting with some Chinese people and some Arabs. Also, we've seen that if there's another wild card that's been peddled, is the fact that, yes, there may be this risk of cyber attack by Russia. They expect that the attack expiring payment system of 5 most active US leading could spill over to about 38% of the banking assets. That they think the cyber attack could mess up the banking assets of leading banks in the United States, leading to worst case scenario, to liquidity hoarding and insolvency. Thinking a lot of companies will go down, a lot of banks will go down, a lot of currency will be messed up that are involved in this transaction. That's one of the worst things that could happen. Still waiting, we've not seen that. We don't know how long Russia will be able to sustain the defense mechanism that they have. But they've also lost a lot of casualty in terms of people being arrested. Some of their soldiers being messed up. But then, look at it from the economic point of view. These are the likely things that may happen, that we begin to see banks closing shops and even companies closing shops. We've seen a lot of economy being messed up in Russia already, with major companies, major international companies shutting down their businesses, except for those that have local affiliates that are very strong. A lot of companies are pulling out of Russia. Let's look at oil now. This is percentage of oil imports to GDP for emerging economies. We're looking at emerging economies. So we've been looking at Europe, US, and Russia, and Ukraine. Then we look at other countries, how things are. Net oil import as a percentage of GDP for emerging economies. These are emerging economies, some emerging economies. That's economies that are not advanced, as is defined by the economists, but are still not, are beyond developing economies. They are more than developing economies. We call them the emerging economies. You can see Thailand, South Korea, India. So they are closer to advanced economy than you are, but then they are in between. So these are the economies. And then we look at, let's look at oil, which is a major driver of revenue for most economies in the world, including the United States. We look at this vis-a-vis their GDP. What percentage of this oil is their GDP? Let's look at the last one there, Saudi Arabia. You can see it's like minus 17, you should put it there, which means their import to GDP is minus 17, which means they are not importing oil. They are rather exporting oil. They are also bigger nation. The next country, if you go from down, is Russia. Russia is the third biggest in the world. And yes, it's not a major driver of the economy, it's negative, which means they can make money from elsewhere. The implication of this are the countries that you have this blue line, blue bar on the right, are those that wait and then imports oil, and it's a major driver of their GDP. So which means a lot of countries, if you look at India, they spend a lot of money to import oil. They are the major country Nigeria export oil to India, sell a lot of oil to them. On weekly basis, on monthly basis, they buy like 2-3 cargoes from Nigeria on a monthly basis of the Brent crude that we have, or Bonny Lights. So this gives you an idea of people that rely on oil and the implication of not having oil because of this crisis, or the implication of having opportunity to produce more because number three producers in the world, Russia, is partially shut down. So it's an opportunity for countries like Nigeria, but unfortunately, we can't even produce 1.8 to 2 million barrels per day that we're given as a kind of production expectation by OPEC because of logistics. So let's look at today. We have looked at before. Let's look at the world economy. What's happening in the world in terms of the economy generally, without being specific to Europe, US, or emerging nations? We've seen declining commodity prices, which means the price of various kinds of commodity, from can see potash, gas, urea, fertilizer, copper, thermal coal. The prices Sanctions against Russia are exacerbating a spike in commodity prices. In terms of percentage, look at the way the price of those commodities are going up. 23% for ammonia, potash, phosphate, nickel, all of them going up. The minimum there is copper, that is 4%. Even the price of oil, if you look at it, the blue line, it's gone up by 12%. The price of gas, the blue line, has gone up by 19%, which means there's been increase in the price of this because of this crisis. So it's not just oil. Everything in terms of price is being affected by this war across the world. This is from Global Wealth Management. Then people that have invested in stock, they are losing money. 10 trillion and counting. World stock have lost more than 10 trillion US dollar in market value this year. Just this year alone, the last 25 days, it's becoming worse in the last 25 days. $10 trillion has been lost in stock across the world. It's scary, it's disturbing. We don't need the war anywhere. So there's no excitement to be at war. If you look at this graph, the movement, look at March 2022. It has dropped to 82 trillion in terms of dollars. It's so scary. So between the beginning and the end, between December and now, massive money has been lost in the stock market. So it's no longer attractive for people to put their money in stock. So where will you keep your money as an investor? So we've looked at commodity price going up. We look at stock price is diminishing. People are losing money. And let's look at equities. It has been a bad year for equities so far. I made a commodity crunch. So equities are also declining. Look at the percentage drop in oil, commodities, gold, even USD in terms of currency. And the government bond are giving negative yield. High yield bond are no longer high yield bond. They're giving minus. So if you look at this now, you can see the quantum of losses across the world because of this crisis. The European Central Bank have to revise their GDP. The extreme red, extreme bar that you see on red is the ECB forecast of what the outlook of their growth is going to be for the year. These are years, 2015, 2016. You can see 2020 was minus because of COVID. 2021, there was growth. Then 2022, the estimated growth. 23, you can see forecasted growth. You can see 2024. Look at 2022, 2023, and 2024. The growth in terms of output across the world, according to the ECB, is going down. Which means it's going to go down. So the impact of whatever we are seeing now is expected to be worse as we go into 2023, 2024. That's the forecast. It's very scary. So this is going beyond today. So it's projected that 4.2 before it has been moved to 3.7 because no one is sure. Then European Union inflation strike is the strike, the hike in the inflation in the European Union is also there. Look at energy. That long blue bar shows that European annual inflation is expected to be 5.8% in February 2022. And it's up from 5.1, which means that inflation has gone in Europe from 5.1 to 5.8. January 5.1 moved to 5.8. And the major composition of that is energy. Unfortunately, it's very cold. You have to heat, majorly for heating. Then followed by food and alcohol, tobacco, that also gone up. 3.5% in January to 4.1% in February. So scary. The non-energy industrial goods also has gone up. 2.1% in January and has gone up 3%. So it's so scary that inflation is going up across the world. Remember, Nigerian inflation jumped across Africa because of energy crisis, because of food supplies, everything. For us to make food, because a lot of importation, except if you want to go, everybody wants to go back to local food, which would have been better for us and more healthier anyway. So this is the European inflation hike, and it's a declining pricing index. Look at your price yesterday, look at your price today, look at the price on 24th, and look at price from the red bar, February 28th. Your extreme right, you can see the declining price index. So European outperformed after Russia launched its attack on Ukraine. Let's come back home. Initially, we think nothing concerns us, like they say in the local palace. So we are on our own, JJO, and suddenly, as if we didn't have enough problem on our own, then comes this Ukraine and Russia war. It's a big problem. Let's look at our precarious fiscal position before. Brent crude crossed $100, but we are not producing. We cannot produce 1.8 million barrels that we're supposed to be producing. So we are not making money when we have opportunity to make money. Oil production up by 6.6%. Federal Accounts Allocation Committee, 17.8% drop. Our external reserve also dropped by 0.5%. Our exchange rate climbed and went up again against dollar, which means you use more naira. 576 is the last count. I'm putting down these reports. Our balance of trade is declining, which means we import more than we export. And it's when you export that it's better for you. The government debt is going up. I'm sure you've seen recently, debt management office giving us some scary figure of how many trillions that we are owing. And they say there's no problem. Now, excess crude accounts is also declining, which means the money we save for tomorrow, excess crude, we're already chopping it. So this is his position in Nigeria. Let's look at some basic highlights for our World Bank revised our 2022 GDP growth. Initially gave us some figures, they now say, look, we have to review it. They move it from 2.4 to 2.5%. And they expect our economy to grow. The earlier projection was 2.4. So due to oil price and accelerated growth in telecoms and financial services, remember we want to go into 5G, so there's a lot of money that came in from people buying licenses for the 5G. So you look at IMF and World Bank, what they projected before and what they've done now. From 2.7 to 2.7, IMF did not change. World Bank from 2.4 to 2.5, like we have looked at earlier on. For December inflation, bulk decline trend is 15.6. After falling from 8 consecutive months, all annual indices increased that. Which means food inflation has gone up 17.37%. The core inflation is 13.87%. And month on month, if you compare this month last year with this month this year, we've gone up by 1.82% in terms of increase in terms of inflation. So which means the food is even the worry, because at least if you don't have any other things, you'll be able to eat. But you can see food price is going up 17.37%, which means if you buy bread today at 350 or 500, that's jump up by 17.3%. That's what it means. Official inflation, now in tandem with market realities and global trend, which means globally, our inflation is going up. Inflation is going up everywhere in the world. 15.6%, US 7%, UK 5.4%, South Africa 5.9%, Ghana 12.6%, Uganda 2.9%. You can see Nigeria is the highest in terms of inflation growth, followed by our brother Ghana. Then South Africa and the United Kingdom are very close. Uganda inflation is 2.9%, which is good. Even better than what you have in Ukraine and Russia, in Uganda. So we begin to look at that. So let's look at the current inflation. It has changed from 15.6 to 15.7 for February. We got this report midweek. So it moved like 10 basic points. Food inflation also moved the opposite direction. It says basically because of the cost push, the cost of things are rising. That's why we look at commodities, stock market, everything, the cost of everything going up is the reason for the inflation. the future inflation is likely to rise in line with the global and regional trend. We expect that the inflation is still going to move in line with global trend. So the National Bureau of Statistics, in their NBS basket, look at the ascribed utility and the energy, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuel as the reason for the inflation. Then the headline inflation, month-on-month inflation. Let's look at it since January 2021. You can see the movement. Moving from 16.47, got to 17, 18, cement, come back to 17, then we got to 15 around October last year. 15.4 November last year. And February got to 15.7. Which makes it much more scary that nothing has really changed since last year. If you earn 200,000 and they add 15.7% deducted from it, which means your money is no longer 200,000 on a monthly basis. So you have lost 15.7% of your pay. That's what it means. So we've seen the month-on-month in the red as it moves in the graph. And we look at the trend, the annualized one in green, from 1 year to another year in green. And the blue one is the headline inflation. The headline inflation is the zero inflation for everybody. Oil price and exchange rate dynamics in Nigeria. If you look at the extreme lefts, look at the period under Obasanjo, look at the period under Yar'Adua, under Goodluck Jonathan, then present period. The blue line is the oil price. And the other orange line, if I may call it orange, is the exchange rate. So if you look at the oil price at the exchange rates, put them together. During Obasanjo, the exchange rate was 125. And the oil price was 44 naira. It moves from Yar'Adua time to 146.75, and Goodluck Jonathan's time to 220 to 95. Then Buhari, you can see the figure. We actually started off 388. Now we have moved dollar to 578 from 388. So, which means the currency has been messed up, it's been devalued, we've lost a lot of things, we cannot export as much as we import. What we can export, we are not producing enough. The price of oil has gone up now to 116, we can't do anything. We're just there, we can't produce enough to take advantage. If you look at the extreme right, you can look at that box and look at the costs. The purchasing power in Naira and in USD. Which means if you have dollars, it's better for you than to have Naira. And this average over the years, over the period, if you look at all these products, it gives you 555 Naira per dollar. Which means you need 555 Naira to buy $1. So if you have your money in dollars, the likelihood is that you're going to be more safer than when you have it in Naira, where there's no drop. Though officially we understand that the exchange rate is, official exchange rate is 416, but it doesn't happen. Me and you cannot see it. So we've seen dollar movement, Naira movement, and the oil price for a period of time. When oil go down, the Naira go down. When oil go up, the Naira still go down. I take it again. When oil go down, the Naira go down. When oil go up, the Naira still go down. So that's why I asked that question. Is the Naira doomed? We all have an answer. But I don't think so. So let's look at our term of trade, the implication of this on the Nigerian terms of trade. In terms of commodity, oil, gas, and others. It would have been better if we can produce a lot of gas in this country, because we have gas in abundance, more than the oil, and everybody needs gas. If you have a way, we can put pipeline and supply Europe now against Russia, but then we don't have. Look at our major imports: wheat, sugar, rice, aluminum. We import everything. what we can sell, export, is just oil, gas. But what percentage of our oil do we sell? The oil that we sell, 74.6% of percentage. We still bring back, we collect dollars on this and import again with finished product, finished petrol and diesel. So Nigeria will benefit from higher oil prices, but subsidy will be a major problem because right now, today, according to the NPC, the subsidy cost on the petrol that we have is over 400 naira per liter. Which means if we remove 400 naira from the cost of petrol today, we'll be selling our petrol for over, at 400 naira to 165, more than 600 naira. That we're going to sell petrol. But we're already borrowing anyway to pay subsidy. I don't see where that happens in the world. It doesn't make sense. Common sense economics. Fiscal gap will be funded through borrowing. Debt servicing costs will increase as interest rates increase. So what we're doing is that because we import more than we export, when we're actually supposed to export more than we import, so our term of trade is determined. This is the formula. Export should be greater than import, but our own is reversed. So we're not importing, even what we're exporting, we're not exporting fully because we're not processing it. We don't add value to anything we're exporting. That's what it means indirectly. So what we have borrowed in terms of money from debt, we are paying back whatever we have borrowed with another debt. So we go and get debt to pay for debt servicing. So what are those economic indicators in Nigeria? What are those things that determines? We look at December, January, and we look at February, the extreme right here. Our GDP as of December 2021 is Q4. In terms of percentage growth is 4%. It drops in January 2020 to 3.5%. Our GDP growth still remains positive, it's expected to be in February 3.5%. Oil production 1.3 million per barrel in November. And it has even dropped in December, 1.34 from 1.38. So there's a decline of 2.8%, 2.8%. So oil production is also on the decline. Our oil rig count, when you say oil rig count, we mean the number of oil rigs that are producing oil. We lost one between November and December. We're still fluctuating between 7 and 8. I'm sure you can guess the number of oil rigs that we have in this country. It's over 50. But this is what it's producing. And oil price average 74.9% in December, 85.54 in January. In February, it was between 85 and 90, but now we can see that this is jumped because of the crisis in Ukraine. So there are some leading indicators of, we have looked at GDP growth, we have looked at oil production, we have looked at oil rig counts, and we look at oil in terms of average for dollar itself. Look at treasury bill, look at inflation. If you go to inflation, 15.63% in December, 15.86% in January, 15.8. Now we've seen 15.7. Our external reserve, we've seen it has been depleted. You can see 40.12 in January and 39 in February. That's further depleted now because we have to use money there to pay some things that are not going to add value in terms of bringing money back. Look at exchange rates fluctuating between 580 naira in December to 571. That 416 there is the official exchange rate. But look at the parallel market is 565 to 570 in February. So these are some highlights that give you an idea of what's happening to us as a nation. But as we even produce the oil, some people are stealing it. So this gives us an idea of between January 2021 in January 2022. What we have produced, our rig count. What I have produced is in the bar. The rig count is at the number of rigs that are working in blue. So the highest ever we have in terms of rig counts is 11. That's August 2021 and September 2021, when we have a lot of our rig working. Because the guys, our brothers in Niger's Delta, are stealing the oil. Bunkering and oil theft now estimated to exceed 200 barrels per day. So they steal 200 barrels per day. There have been 4 force majeure for 4 months, continue to escalate approach. So which means people were forced, oil producers were forced to leave their rigs because of crisis. Nigeria will not benefit from the high oil prices as it continues to produce below capacity, because we are not producing the capacity we're supposed to produce. I mean, the allocation that we have, the quota, is to produce 1.8 million barrels, but we're barely doing 1.3. So rig count is expected to increase to 8 rig counts in January. So there's a lot that are issues for us. But then, finally, what is next? If I look at so many problems, we will have seen that what I've been showing, what we've been looking at is everything so gloomy, so frenzy, so scary. No one else what contribute to forest revenue will be flat. That's what he expects. So non-oil revenue, things we get is not improving because things locally are not encouraging it. There's a rebate for that, it's not happening. For those that bring in for US dollar rates that the banks are offering, it's not attractive to users. Force majeure and oil bunkering will increase at the expense of the federal government because people are having fun out of it, so they will continue to do it and nobody's stopping. Nobody seems to be stopping them. It's like those in power are even, they have authority and head strength are involved in this. Stock market performance could be bullish as these on fixed income instruments remain very, very low. Domestic investors will keep their eyes on corporate earnings. So people invest in companies that are making money. They can, the likes of Nestle Foods and MTN, that's where people want to put their money. International investors will be more focused on the electoral risk because election is coming. So people will be more careful. So our debt, remember, according to the debt management, increased to 39.556 trillion US dollars. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to grow our revenue. And how are we going to do that? Are we going to increase tax? When people are crying, is it tax we're going to increase? Is it yes? Is it no? Or we're going to expand the tax net to people that are not originally paying tax enough? What about our assets? We have a lot of assets, idle assets that are not giving us money. Can we look at that as a nation? So much fixed assets, so much standing assets being wasted. We're not making money out of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop here. If there's any question, I'd like to take. Yeah, Lukman, Denny.
Hello, sir.
So go ahead, Lukman.
My name is Lukman Odeni.
Yes, sir.
I'm highly impressed with your presentations. Though I met it on the way.
Okay.
But what I met, they were eye-opener. They were eye-opener. I must be sincere with you. In times like this, how do a country like Nigeria, how can we float and leverage on this opportunity to meet our agricultural needs? Because what I can see is that there would be inflation, increase in price of commodities, especially wheat and corn, in time to come. Like soonest, how do we go about it? How can we leverage on agriculture? And again, how can we improve on our exportation? Finished products, not raw material.
Do I take all the questions? Then I answer one after the other, if you don't mind. I can see Akim Bakri. I'll answer. I'll come back to you, Lukman.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that insightful for Nigeria, especially at large. But you lifted my that at least if we can feed ourselves, yes, we will be better off. However, mine is more of an observation. If we look at food production also in Nigeria, farming, as we want to call it, all the implements, the tools are also being affected by inflation already. If you look at fertilizer, which is a major input in bringing out, good output, farming output, is affected. The labor deployed is affected. Even finished products, logistics in terms of diesel is AGO is carrying more than 50% or 60, 70 of what is being of the cost. So all this will I don't know. It's just an observation. Maybe while addressing Lukman's question, you want to also help us to highlight and throw more light on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mercy.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Doctor. I think that was a very insightful presentation. It was extremely very insightful, and I like your engagement. You really went getting us from the basics into how it affects us and all that. Very well done. So we are entering into the politician season. If we are not already there within the season, and my concern is, I know you gave us the picture of where we are, and it's not looking like there's a savior. There's any how will I put the silver lining that on our own, given the way we are, given how we are riding, what we are doing right now, it's not looking like there's any silver lining that is there. So it's more or less like all gloom and all that. So, but what I want to now ask is, for those of us that are concerned and we believe that no matter how little it is, I am one vote, another person is another vote. So we're in the politician season. What kind of conversations? Because the conversations we have right now they are so mediocre that you can't even begin to want to have that engagement, because the conversations are not conversations that end of the day you're looking at yourself, whether you're a parent, whether you're a grandparent, or whether you're even an expecting parent. You're not seeing a future that you are even excited about to even talk about to your offspring. So mine is, given all this data, this analysis, what are the conversations that we should be having our politicians talk about? What are the key, because we are looking at the oil production side of things. We're looking at the theft that is going on there. So it's a loss. And the bottom line is, we want to be true to ourselves. It's not looking like it's no silver lining. So what should the rhetoric that should make sense for us during this election season be, such that we are not carried away with the the nonsensical things that have no bordering whatsoever on our livelihood for the next 4 years. Because really, if we're able to articulate that, then we can take that to the different arenas where we are, whether it's in our mosque, whether it's in our places of work. We can take, because we need to take back the power from those that don't seem like that they envisage a future that is beyond their own personal existence. So we need to, for those of us that are thinking, oh, we probably are thinking 30 years from now, thinking 25 years from now, thinking 30 years from now, the onus is on us to take back whatever future we think, to start mapping out that future for ourselves. So I think that, so my question to you, sorry, is what are the conversations that we should be mindful of? So, that knowledge, we now share it in all our arenas. So when we start hearing things that are not in any way aligned, we know that this is not for us. And we quickly just say, you know what, you don't even know what you're talking about. Please, can we get those that understand what's going on with us, about our economy, our welfare, our sustenance, and all the things that underpin what a society is built upon. Because right now, just listening to you, it doesn't even look like we have a society in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Who else has hand is up? I guess that's all. I'll just take the question one after the other. I would like to start talking about.
There's a question in the chat box, sir.
Okay, can you read out the question?
There's a question in the chat box, sir.
Okay.
It says, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this great analysis and lecture. If this war continues for another 1 month, what will be its implication in Africa and Nigeria in particular economy?
Okay, if I get you right, that is talking about if the war continues, what's going to be the implication for Africa and Nigeria?
Yes, economy.
It's all right. So, like I said, thank you. Like I said, I'll just take Brother Lukman's question first. He talks about, his concern is about how can we leverage on agriculture to improve on whatever it is that is happening now in terms of the gloomy environment that we are. Since we need food to survive, since we need to do this. Well, I'm aware that the Central Bank of Nigeria has pumped so much money in agriculture. And they show us the pyramid the other day in Abuja. And there was a ceremony about the pyramid. I thought the food prices would have gone, but you can see from analysis that the food inflation went up over 17%, even more than the top line inflation, which means the food price is costly. This top line inflation is not looking at Lagos or Abuja alone, it's looking at the totality of Nigeria, which means the impact of these agricultural products, we're not feeling it locally for our own consumption. Secondly, we're not exporting these agricultural products because we don't seem to have the kind of quality that can go outside this country and compete favorably with other nations of the world. Why are we still importing wheat when we have corn? Why are we still bringing in wheat from Russia, from Ukraine? We can get high yield wheat and produce in mass. And we've seen the pyramid. I thought the pyramid would have been able to solve our problem. So we can do this by being sincere, getting to the right people to do the right investments. See, and we don't have a process where when we produce, we stop. When we stop, we add value before we sell. We don't do those processes. We don't follow those processes. We are supposed to have a process where we produce these products in abundance, not waiting for rain to be the determinant of what we produce. Then we produce it, we store it, ensure that we don't waste, reduce waste. We provide logistic, take it to where it's going to be refined and process it, add value to it, and we now sell. That is not happening until whether Federal Ministry of Agriculture is able to say and liaise with a lot of private organizations that are involved in agriculture and individuals and communities. I know they come into groups and they fund them. Billions of naira have gone into it. And now we are complaining that we still don't have the food. I don't know, honestly, what we're going to do about that, except if our leaders are sincere in terms of how to put this money, how to get this product to put together, how to add value to it, and make sure we add value to it. Don't just eating corn by the corn woman on the road alone. The food generally ensure that we're able to provide logistics for those that will transport this product to where they are needed. Because where they are produced is not where they are needed really. So logistics must be provided, just like Mr. Akim Bakri said, even the cost of fertilizers, tools, and everything are also making things much more difficult. The tools they use in working, the cost of those things are also up. So how we're going to leverage on whatever we have now to ensure we grow agriculture, if I put both Lukman's question and Mr. Akim's contribution together, is that all those things that we need to do in terms of tools for getting the best out of these agricultural products should be provided. These are some of the things we should be subsidizing as against subsidizing petrol. Subsidize it, give it to the people that actually need it. Don't politicize it, don't turn it to palliative for people. Give it to people, let them use it, provide processing plant for them, let them process whatever they produce, and let them add value to it, so that by the time you sell locally, you can export whatever you have and make money out of that. That's my thinking. And Mercy talks about the conversation we should be having now. Having seen so much analysis, so much disturbing trend in terms of this presentation, what kind of conversation are we supposed to converse with our people, especially our leaders as politics comes in? There's a lot of questions I think we should be able to ask a leader. In some of the forums that I had been able to participate in a few months ago, I was asking, how did we get here for 61 years? We've not been able to provide power, steady power, electricity, so that that organizer on the streets can have power without using a generator. So that that woman do not need a pass manual generator to power a grinding machine. So that that radio man that fixes radio and television can fix it, he doesn't need to use generator. That barber can have it. So these are the people that grow economy anywhere in the world. The micro enterprises are the ones that grow economy anywhere in the world. Those are the people we should invest in. We're not supposed to invest massively in Dangote. We're not supposed to invest massively in other big businesses like that. They can raise money from other sources. We don't need to put government money in that. So support these people. So these are the kind of people, conversation we should be having with them. Look, can we take a look at these small businesses and support them? Not running an entrepreneur program, put them in a hall, 200 people, show them how to make soap and give them 100,000 naira. That's not what we're talking about. When you give them 100,000 naira, they're already hungry. They are owing rent, they'll go and pay. Can we establish some of these things? Get people to come together, let them establish it privately. Government does not have business running business. It's people that have business running business. Let them come together, let them know there is money that's their own money that is involved, and then begin to run it. And let's start that from the beginning to have a value chain till the end. You now see the value, you can now begin to see the money. So these are the kind of conversation we should be having with our politicians. What are you bringing to the table? What kind of legislation? Are you going to legislate that we should have power? Can we decentralize power supply? Because if you produce power and it's more than 2 gigabytes or so, or I don't know, kilowatts, they will ask you to bring it to the national grid. Can we disengage that? Can we have companies in Lagos to produce power and give Lagosians a load without sending it to the national grid, so that people can be much more productive? Can you look at what they are doing in Kaduna State that's making them develop an IGR that is growing? Can we look at what they are doing in Ogun State? They're encouraging businesses to come and they're making huge money out of taxes from them. So let state government begin to think. Let's stop asking the federal government to do something. Can we ask the states what they're doing with the money they're able to get? Can we begin to chase and follow them up, ask them questions, so that they can be answerable to us? So the question on that's the answer to what I think we should be asking our politicians. And what are they going to give us? Not that it's going to be so much infrastructure again. An implication of the war on African nation, you see, if you see what is happening, like I said earlier on, Russia seems to be very, very prepared for this war. How long they are prepared, they can sustain it, worry. Some European countries are already saying that they can no longer take hostages because they begin to have their own problem. Because close to 5 million people have run out of Ukraine right now, going to different parts of the world. The entire population of Ukraine, like you see, is about 40-something million. And 5 million run out of, and they are going to Europe. They're not coming to Africa. They will not come because they say we are not people like them. We don't speak the same like them. We don't look like them. And we don't worship the same God. So if they are going to Europe and Europeans are already complaining, the NATO that they want to join are discussing this war for them. The NATO people are saying that they don't want them anymore. And they've killed a lot of their people. So in coming to Africa, in coming to Nigeria, this war, if it continues for another 1 month, the price of bread will go up because we import wheat from that part of the world. The price of oil, it's become very difficult for us to sustain subsidy on petroleum products because it's become much more difficult to bring in petrol and subsidize it and get it on 165, which means the price of petrol will have to go up. And it's very simple for government to increase price. Forget about what labor is doing and they are threatening to do something. Is by the time there's scarcity and you don't see petrol at all, people will say whatever you can get. You know, Nigerians were very, very strong people. So for me, if this war continues, things are going to get worse than they are now. And not just in Nigeria, the entire Africa will feel it. Europe will feel it more. If it gets worse, just like the worst case scenario that I painted in my presentation. If Russia cuts off their gas supply to Europe, a lot of people will die because nobody can give them enough gas and they're not prepared for it. The cost of oil will go up. Truck drivers will not pick products from wherever they're based and take it to their shelf in the supermarkets in the US is getting dry already. So the world will feel it. Africa will feel it because price of things will go up from our bread to our petrol to our oil. Everything will go up. So that is my explanation on that. Any other question?
Yes, there's one more in the chat box.
Okay, can you help me read?
Okay, it says, considering the current price of petroleum products, what advantage would we as a country have had if our refineries were to be working? Also, Dangote refinery is planning to start soon. What advantage do we stand to gain?
Okay, to the first part of the question, that's the price of oil is going up. What have we started to get? We are supposed ordinarily, the OPEC gave us 2 million barrels per day as a quota for us to be able to produce. We can't produce, we're doing 1.8. Now, because of vandalization, because of theft, because of so many things, we cannot do more than 1.3 billion. So even with the price of oil is 500, we're not still going to benefit. So it's unfortunate that we can't do that. Well, then talking about, so there's no benefit for us, even if the price of oil go up, because we are not producing enough volume. So with the little volume we are producing, they are stealing it. So now, talking about and government is not doing anything about that. They will say they are working on it, and it's still in the pipeline. And the pipeline is being vandalized, you see it's in the pipeline. Then you talk about, the second question, part of the question is talking about, can you remind me?
That the Dangote refinery is planning to kickstart soon.
Yes.
What advantage do we stand to gain?
Well, the advantage with Dangote refinery is that governments has invested, federal government of Nigeria, NNPC has invested in Dangote refinery, which means they are trying to cushion the effect of the cost of building the refinery between 19 to 20 billion US dollars. So they have invested in that, which means they want to have a say and take some products from that. So what government will do is, that is not even appropriate if you ask me, as an oil person. Let somebody else do it, not government. Dangote is a businessman. So the advantage we will get is that, yes, the fuel will be available for us locally as against going to the refinery outside country to refine and bring it back. So we don't need to travel far again. If it takes us 45 days to bring products, we now have it handy. We have the crude, we can refine the crude, send it to him and give it to us. So the advantage is that we're going to spend less dollar, hopefully hopefully we're going to spend less dollar getting local petroleum product for consumption. That's the advantage of Dangote refinery. And our own refinery cannot work even when we have, since they are not working, their capacity put together is not even up to what Dangote has anyway. If we put them together, now with whatever we are producing, if the refinery have been working, it should have been better for us. We wouldn't have been spending money, dollars, USD now, Forex, to import product again. That's the advantage. So that our revenue, in terms of savings for petroleum product importation, we'll have been able to gain higher savings instead of bringing more dollars to buy third-party products through the product of swap or DSDP, direct sales, direct supply, that they call it. So that's my response to that. Would that be all? Any question? But I'm registered, that's all.
Yes, I believe that's all, sir.
I thank you all for this opportunity to discuss this. I thank each and every person that have been part of this conversation. Has been very, very fine and lovely. We appreciate you, and we pray that things continue to get better in this country.
Your contact in the chat box.
My contact in the chat box. Okay, is my email. I'll send my email to you. Would that be fine, sir?
Okay, sir.
All right. Madam, can you put my email on? Okay, yeah, I can do that now. Sorry. Can you see that?
Okay. Okay. Sing.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I quite appreciate this session, and I thank you very much for being part of this wonderful session. And, I wish you a great week. Thank you. God bless.